The rain was relentless, hammering the roof of the old diner like it was trying to break through. Inside, I sat alone in a cracked vinyl booth, staring at the coffee ring on the table, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. Ethan, my boyfriend of 2 years, had just walked out, leaving me with a half-eaten burger and a truth I couldn't unhear. We'd been fighting again, same old story. Ethan's jealousy was a storm that never let up. And tonight it had swept us into dangerous territory. He'd accused me of cheating, of sneaking around with my ex, Caleb, because I'd smiled at him during a chance encounter at the grocery store. I tried to explain it was nothing, just a reflex, a ghost of a past I'd buried. But Ethan didn't listen. He never did. His voice had risen, sharp and cutting, drawing stares from the other diners. "You're still in love with him, Noah." He'd spat, his green eyes blazing. "Don't lie to me." I didn't lie. I told him the truth. I wasn't in love with Caleb anymore. But what I didn't say, what I couldn't say, was that I wasn't sure I was in love with Ethan either. Not anymore. The realization hit me like a punch. Right there in that greasy diner in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. I'd been holding on to him, to us, because I thought that's what you do when you're 24 and you've built a life with someone. You stay. You fight. You make it work. But Ethan's accusations, his constant need to control, had worn me down to nothing. I was tired. Tired of proving my loyalty. Tired of apologizing for things I hadn't done. So I ended it. Right there. Over cold fries and a lukewarm Coke. I looked him in the eye and said, "I'm done. Ethan. I can't do this anymore." His face crumpled, like I'd pulled the pin on a grenade he didn't know he was holding. He begged, his voice cracking, but I stood firm. I had to. For once, I chose myself. He stormed out into the rain, and I stayed, staring at the empty seat across from me. The diner's neon sign buzzed outside, casting a red glow through the window. I should have felt free, but all I felt was hollow. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Noah. It's Tom. Caleb's dad. Heard you're in town. You okay?" Tom. The man who'd been more of a father to me than my own ever was. When Caleb and I dated in high school, Tom was the one who'd welcomed me into their home, who'd taught me how to change a tire, who'd listened when I came out to him before I told my parents. Even after Caleb and I broke up, messy, teenage heartbreak, Tom never stopped checking in. He was the kind of man who carried everyone's burdens, even when his own shoulders were sagging. I texted back, "Not really. Can we talk?" 30 minutes later, I was sitting in Tom's pickup truck, the rain still pounding, as he drove us to his cabin by Lake Vinola. The wipers swished rhythmically, and Tom didn't push me to talk. He just let me sit. Let the silence be enough. When we got to the cabin, he handed me a mug of hot chocolate and sat across from me, his gray eyes steady. "Want to tell me what happened?" he asked, his voice low, like he was coaxing a scared animal out of hiding. I told him everything. About Ethan's jealousy, the fights, the breakup, about how I felt like I'd failed at love again. Tom listened, nodding, his calloused hands wrapped around his own mug. When I finished, he leaned back, his flannel shirt creased from a long day at the garage he owned. "Sounds like Ethan failed you, not the other way around," Tom said. "Love's not about passing tests, Noah. It's about trust. And if he couldn't trust you, that's on him." His words hit hard, but they also felt like a lifeline. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. Had I been too quick to walk away? Was I the one who'd failed Ethan by not trying harder? I didn't have answers, but sitting there with Tom, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I wasn't as broken as I thought. The next morning, I woke up on Tom's couch, the smell of bacon pulling me out of a restless sleep. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the lake sparkled under the early sun. Tom was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, humming some old Springsteen song. Felt like home, the way it always had when I was 17 and sneaking into Caleb's room after curfew. Caleb, my first love. The one who'd shattered me when he left for college in California, chasing dreams that didn't include me. We'd been kids, reckless and in love, but his ambition had outgrown our small town. I hadn't seen him in years, not since that summer after graduation when we'd screamed at each other in his driveway, both too stubborn to admit we were scared of losing what we had. Tom caught me staring out the window at the lake. "He's coming back, you know," he said, setting a plate of pancakes in front of me. "Caleb got a job offer in Philly. He'll be here next week." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Caleb, back in Pennsylvania. The thought sent a jolt through me. Equal parts dread and something else, something I didn't want to name. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. Tom shrugged, his eyes kind but unreadable. "Didn't think it mattered. Does it?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because deep down, I knew it did. The week passed in a blur of restless nights and long days at the bookstore where I worked. Every time the bell above the door jingled, my heart jumped, half expecting to see Caleb walk in, his old leather jacket slung over his shoulder, that crooked smile lighting up his face. But it was never him. Just customers. Locals. The same faces I'd known my whole life in this sleepy town. Tom kept me grounded. He'd show up at the bookstore with coffee or drag me to the garage to help him tinker with an old Mustang he was restoring. He didn't bring up Caleb again, but his silence felt deliberate, like he was giving me space to figure out what I was feeling. I was grateful for it, but it didn't stop the questions swirling in my head. Did Caleb even know I was still here? Would he care? And why did the thought of seeing him again make my chest ache like it did when I was 16? Then Ethan called. It was late. The kind of late where the world feels too quiet. I was sprawled on my couch, a half-read novel abandoned on my chest, when my phone lit up with his name. I almost didn't answer, but something guilt maybe made me pick up. "Noah," he said, his voice raw, like he'd been crying. "I'm sorry. I messed up. I know I did." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Ethan, we've been through this. You don't trust me. You never have. I can change," he pleaded. "I'll do better. I love you." Those 3 words used to mean everything. Now they just felt heavy, like a weight I couldn't carry anymore. "I need time," I said finally, because I didn't know what else to say. He hung up, and I sat there, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd made the right choice. The next day, I was shelving books when the bell jingled, and there he was, Caleb, taller than I remembered, his dark curls longer, his jaw sharper. He wore a faded denim jacket and carried a canvas bag slung over one shoulder. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world stopped. He smiled, that same damn smile, and I felt like I was falling through time. "Hey, Noah," he said, his voice softer than I expected. "Been a while." I nodded, my throat tight. "Yeah, a while." We stood there, awkward, the weight of 4 years hanging between us. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee, and against my better judgment, I said yes. We ended up at the diner, the same one where I dumped Ethan. Irony's a cruel bastard. Over coffee, Caleb told me about California, about the tech job he'd left behind, about how he'd missed the quiet of home. I told him about the bookstore, about Ethan, about the breakup. I don't know why I told him that last part, but the words spilled out before I could stop them. "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. I could see it in the way his eyes softened, the way his fingers twitched like he wanted to reach for me but didn't. Sounds like he didn't know what he had. I laughed. Bitter. "Yeah, well, I'm not exactly a prize either." "Don't say that," Caleb said, his voice sharp. "You're more than enough, Noah. You always were." His words hit like a spark in dry grass, and I hated how much they still affected me. We talked for hours, until the diner started to empty and the waitress gave us pointed looks. When we finally left, the air outside was crisp, the stars bright above the lake. Caleb walked me to my car, and for a moment, I thought he might kiss me, but he just smiled, said he'd see me around, and walked away. I drove home in a daze, my heart a tangled mess. Caleb was back, and he was still the same guy who'd broken my heart. But he was also different, steadier, kinder, like he'd grown into someone who might actually stay. I didn't know what to do with that. The next morning, I got a text from Ethan. "I'm outside. Please talk to me." My stomach dropped. I looked out the window, and there he was, standing in the rain, his hoodie soaked through. I should have sent him away, but I didn't. I let him in, and he stood in my living room, dripping wet, his eyes red. "I can't lose you," he said, his voice breaking. "I know I screwed up, but I'm trying. Noah, I'm really trying." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe love could be enough. But as I looked at him, all I could think about was Caleb's smile, the way it had felt like coming home. And I hated myself for it. Ethan stood in my living room, water pooling at his feet, his eyes pleading for something I wasn't sure I could give. I handed him a towel, avoiding his gaze. "You can't keep doing this, Ethan," I said. "Showing up like this is not fair." "I know," he whispered, clutching the towel like it was a lifeline. "But I don't know how to let you go." I wanted to scream, to tell him he should have thought of that before he accused me of betraying him, before he made me feel small. But I didn't. I just stood there, my arms crossed, trying to hold myself together. "You need to figure that out," I said finally, "because I can't keep saving you from yourself." He left, his shoulders slumped, and I felt like the worst person in the world. But I also felt something else, relief. Like I'd finally set down a weight I'd been carrying too long. I didn't have time to dwell on it, though, because Tom called, asking me to come by the cabin. His voice sounded off, strained, like he was holding something back. When I got there, Tom was sitting on the porch, a beer in his hand, staring out at the lake. "Caleb told me you two talked," he said, not looking at me. Said it felt like old times. I sat beside him, my heart racing. Yeah. It was weird. Good, but weird. Tom nodded, taking a long sip of his beer. He's different now, Noah. Life out west changed him, made him realize what matters. He paused, his eyes meeting mine. He asked about you, wanted to know if you were happy. I didn't know how to answer that. Was I happy? I had a job I loved, a life I'd built. But happy? That word felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. I'm trying to be, I said finally. Tom smiled, but it was sad. That's all any of us can do. The next few days were a whirlwind. Caleb started showing up at the bookstore, bringing coffee, lingering by the shelves, asking me about books he'd never read. It was like he was trying to rebuild something, but I didn't know if I could trust it. Every time he smiled, I remembered the pain of losing him, but I also remembered the way he'd made me feel alive. Ethan kept texting, begging for another chance, and I kept dodging him, because every time I thought about going back, I saw Caleb's face instead. Then came the night of the town's summer festival. The lake was lit up with string lights, music drifting through the air, kids running around with sparklers. I was there with Tom, helping him set up a booth for his garage. When Caleb found me, he was wearing a white t-shirt, his curls damp from the humid night, and he looked like he belonged there, under the stars. "Dance with me," he said, holding out his hand. I laughed, nervous. "There's no dance floor, Caleb." "Don't need one," he said, his eyes locked on mine. "Just need you." My heart stopped. I took his hand, and we moved to the edge of the crowd, swaying to the music, the world fading around us. His hand was warm in mine, his other arm around my waist, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But then I saw Ethan, standing by the food trucks, watching us. His face was a mask of pain, and my stomach twisted. "Caleb," I said, pulling away. "I can't do this. Not yet." He looked hurt but nodded. "I'll wait, Noah. As long as it takes." I walked away, my chest tight, and found Tom by the lake. He didn't ask what happened, just handed me a beer and sat with me, the water lapping at the shore. "You're allowed to want what you want, Noah," he said after a while, "even if it's messy." I wanted to believe him, but the mess felt too big. Ethan's pain, Caleb's hope, my own confusion, it was all too much. I didn't know how to choose, or if I even should. The festival's lights lingered in my mind as I drove home, the memory of Caleb's hand in mine burning like a brand. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying Ethan's face, the way he'd looked at me like I'd betrayed him all over again. But I hadn't. I'd just been honest with him, with myself. And that honesty was tearing me apart. The next morning, I found Ethan at my door again. He wasn't crying this time, but his eyes were hollow, like he hadn't slept either. "I saw you with him," he said, his voice flat. "At the festival. You looked happy." I didn't deny it. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to see that." He laughed, a broken sound. "You didn't mean for me to see you falling for him again. That's rich, Noah." "I'm not," I stopped. Was I falling for Caleb again? Or was it something new? Something stronger? I didn't have the words, so I just said, "I need to figure this out. Alone." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight. "I hope he's worth it," he said. And then he was gone, his car peeling out of my driveway. I stood there, feeling like I'd lost something I couldn't name. I went to Tom's cabin that afternoon, needing his steady presence. He was in the garage, working on the Mustang, grease on his hands. "You look like hell," he said, not unkindly. "I feel like it," I admitted. I told him about the festival, about Ethan, about Caleb's hand in mine. Tom listened, wiping his hands on a rag, his face unreadable. When I finished, he leaned against the car, his eyes on me. "You're not a kid anymore, Noah. You don't have to choose between them. You can choose yourself." His words hit like a revelation. All this time, I'd been caught between Ethan's need and Caleb's pull. But what about me? What did I want? I didn't know. But for the first time, I felt like I had permission to find out. A week later, Caleb asked me to meet him by the lake. It was dusk, the sky painted in pinks and purples, the water still. He was waiting on the dock, his hands in his pockets, looking nervous. "I owe you an apology," he said, "for leaving the way I did, for not fighting for us." I swallowed, my throat tight. We were kids, Caleb. We didn't know better. "Maybe," he said, stepping closer. "But I know better now. I want you, Noah. Not just for now, but for good." My heart pounded, but I didn't pull away this time. I let him take my hand, let him pull me close. When he kissed me, it was soft, tentative, like he was afraid I'd vanish. But I didn't. I kissed him back, and it felt like coming home. We're taking it slow, Caleb and I. There's no rush, no need to prove anything. Ethan's moved to Pittsburgh, chasing a fresh start, and I hope he finds it. I'm still figuring myself out, but I'm not doing it alone. Tom's still there, offering coffee and wisdom, a steady hand when I need it. Love isn't a test you pass or fail. It's a choice, every day, to show up, to trust, to let yourself be seen. I'm learning that now, one step at a time, with Caleb by my side and Tom's words in my heart. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.